today on this free webinar hosted by Madeline Island School of the Arts. My name is Annie Meach-Sumner. Alongside me are 4 master photographers who are here today to share their insight on this 4th annual Creative Flower Photography Retreat on Madeline Island in Wisconsin. We're going to show a couple pictures here. Let's see. Got some images of this retreat. This 5-day photography retreat is timed perfectly to coincide with the annual spectacle of lupin flowers that you see behind me. You will learn a wide variety of techniques from 4 master photographers who specialize in macro, close-up, and abstract imagery, utilizing the picturesque Madeline Island and the historic port town of Bayfield. Capture more than 50,000 blossoming florals, including a vivid mosaic of lupin flowers, island gardens erupting in vibrant array of color, and diverse woodland plant life offering countless opportunities for breathtaking shots. Your retreat experience includes a combination of shooting in the field, classroom lectures, and unique post-processing training utilizing specialized software. You'll have ample time to receive personal hands-on one-on-one instruction from each instructor, both in the field and classroom. One of the highlights of this retreat is a scenic photography boat cruise through the Apostle Islands to the legendary sea caves of Devil's Island. This excursion offers unparalleled opportunities to capture stunning landscapes and waterscapes. The retreat begins on Sunday evening with a welcome reception and dinner, followed by a brief orientation session. Each of the following days, there will be morning sessions, followed by classroom lectures and optional evening field sessions. 4 assigned groups will rotate among each of the 4 instructors in various locations throughout the week, affording you the opportunity to spend 1 full day with each instructor. The week will culminate with a supportive image evaluations and a photo showcase of the students' accomplishments. We invite you to join us for this annually sold-out Creative Flower Photography Workshop on Madeline Island, being held June 16th to the 20th, 2025. In the next hour, these instructors will present their images, sharing their expert tips and techniques to help you capture the beauty of flowers like never before. If we have time after the presentation, we will try to answer questions and if you put them in the chat box. Without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to our 4 master photographers. In no particular order, we will start with Mike Moats, who's joining us from Michigan. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, thanks, Annie. Let me just get my screen up. All right, everyone. So this is my 4th year teaching on Madeline Island, and I'm honored to be back again this year with 3 other exceptional instructors. It's going to be an amazing workshop. And one thing that the school has always done is to provide instructors that all have their unique styles and come from a different point of view on how they do their flower photography. And I tend to like to shoot a lot of my flower photography with everything in focus, but today I just want to cover a couple simple tips that will help you guys, and also what I'll be somewhat teaching on the island when I'm there in June next year. Now, as you can see, I'm holding what's called a diffuser, and this image right here is of a dame's rocket flower. And as you can see, the top portions of this flower is a pink color on the petals, but it's not a pink flower. It's supposed to be a purple flower. So what we do is we take that 12-inch diffuser. Now, they also have different sizes. I know Jackie, I think, uses a 20 or 22-inch. I use the 12-inch, which is sufficient for 90% of the flowers that I shoot. But I will tell you this, that on the island, when you're shooting the lupin, because they're larger, we tend to use maybe a larger diffuser. But once I put that diffuser over top of that dame's rocket flower, you'll get the colors back to the purple it should be. Now, you may think that maybe it was washed out because it was shot on a sunny day, because that does happen on sunny days where we'll get washed out colors, but it was actually shot on a cloudy day. So even on cloudy days, depending on that particular day, you can get subjects that'll wash out colors. And it's typically the areas that are running parallel to the sky, because there's still enough intensity of light and also reflection off those white clouds coming down, and can sometimes wash out colors. Now, on that same cloudy day, I'm walking down a pathway and I happen to look to my left and I see this leaf right here. And that leaf, you can see the top portion of that leaf is running parallel to the sky. Now the front portion is 90 degrees to the sky. So it's those areas again that are running parallel that'll wash out on those cloudy days even. Now, once I put the diffuser over top of it, I can bring the color back on the top portion of that leaf. So I still don't have as much intensity of darkness on the top as I do in the front, but at least there's enough color there that I can work with that color in the top portion to darken it down to match up with the front of the leaf. Now, if all I had to work with is that image on the left, there's no color there, it'd be almost impossible to bring that back and match it up with the front of the leaf. So very important. Now, what happens if it's a sunny day? All right, on a sunny day, I'm going to diffuse my subject 100% of the time. I never let sunlight hit any of the subject I'm photographing. Because there's three bad things that happen when sunlight hits your subject. One, it can alter colors, depending on the time of day, it can alter the colors. It can add shadows in areas that I might not want shadows, and it can also wash out colors on certain times of the day. Now, on that image on the left, that's a sumac branch, and that is early morning sunlight directly hitting onto that branch. Now, early morning, late evening, the light has a little warmer feel to it than more in the midday. And that has actually altered the color of the leaves to a yellowish green. There's also a couple minor shadows in there, not a big deal. Sometimes you'll get images where you've got a lot of shadows, but in this one, it's just a couple minor little shadows. So once I put the diffuser between the subject and the sunlight shading it, you can see the image on the right side. That is the actual color of the leaves. So it's brought the color back to the natural color it's supposed to be. If you also notice in the area where the shadow was, the shadows have been eliminated. So again, I'm using my diffuser 100% of the time on sunny days. And then on cloudy days, it's just a matter of the subject and how that particular day is affecting that subject and whether it needs a diffuser over top or not. And it's just as simple as putting that diffuser directly over top of the subject or in between the subject and the sunlight if it's a sunny day. I always teach about searching for character, and we have obviously tons and tons and tons of lupin. The whole island is full of hundreds of thousands of lupin everywhere. And it's an amazing sight to see. Now, as you can see, all the lupin are basically just flowers that grow straight up. And that's kind of what 99.9% of them do. But what I teach people when I'm out in the field is to look for something that has some character to it. So it's a little bit different than the standard lupin flowers. So here's one in particular I shot last June. And as you can see, it has this really neat little curl to it right here. So it makes it different from all the others. And that's kind of what I like to search for, is the flowers that are a little bit unique, a little bit different from all the others. Another one here where it just bent over on the top, or this one here where you have a nice S curve almost in it. And so that's kind of what I teach, is searching for that character. Now, when we're on the island, there'll be beautiful leaves that are produced by these lupins. So I will also shoot where I include some of those leaves into the scene with the lupin, and it makes a very nice image. Really nice cool little leaves that come along with that flower. You'll also find other flowers on the island. So I like to go to some of the wooded areas where you have lupin. Oh, forgot to mention, this is another thing you'll learn when you're in the workshop. I teach how to produce backgrounds, make my own backgrounds, and I will put them behind the flowers that we shoot and then crop out what I need in the post-processing. So on the island, there's wooded areas where they have bunchberries like you see here. different wildflowers. They got some forget-me-nots and orange hawkweed. So there are other flowers there to shoot. And then we'll also be shooting in private gardens. And so the instructors will be at different gardens shooting in some of the private gardens. Also on a rainy day, what happens if it rains? Well, there's a little garden center down the street from the island or the school, and we'll go and pick up flowers there, or we might pick up some flowers in town also at some of the florists, and then we'll have those available so we can shoot indoors in case we have rainy days. We're still going to continue to shoot. So, okay, that's it for me. I will stop the share.
Thank you so much. And I will move on. Mike, that was great and informative. I appreciate it. I'm going to move to Jacki Kramer, who's coming to us from Florida. Jacki, take it away.
Thank you very much, Annie. I am going to also share some of the images that I've done and talk about the techniques in general that we used. And I want to also echo what Mike said. I'm honored to be here with the 3 other floral photographers. And I'm really looking forward to working with all of you who come next summer. So I like to start by talking about some of the different techniques working with the subjects that we have there. The lupin, as Mike mentioned, are beautiful, and so is the blue sky. So sometimes it's really easy to get so focused on the subject that we forget about what's around it. And intimate scenes like this give you a sense of context, and you can see some of the other little wildflowers that you might encounter. We also look in various gardens that we might pass or go to, and this just happened to be along the way to one of our locations. It was a beautiful, big, and almost like a creeping rose, and the petals that were missing on this one told a story. So I really enjoyed that. We look at the settings and try to really minimize distractions while we're in the field shooting and try to get the cleanest background possible. And that's just the way I like to shoot most of the time. Another example of selective focus achieved by using specialty lenses such as the Lensbabies. I use a variety of Lensbabies in the field, and it does a really good job of minimizing blemishes and making aging flowers look a little bit softer. Shooting through, I love to look for opportunities to get close to the foliage and other flowers, perhaps, to give yourself a veil that encompasses and allows your subject to emerge from. So this is a really nice technique when you find it. It's not always easy to find, but that's what I like to do, is be on the lookout and then identify them and share those opportunities with you. Telling a story with selective focus. And then looking at a variety of Lensbaby effects by using different optics. And these are just a few examples in one of the little areas that we went to shoot. So you can really be standing by 10 other people, and it's very possible that none of you walks away with the same image. And that's what I really hope to strive for, is to impart some ideas and techniques to stimulate your imagination so that you see things differently from everybody else. And you know then what tools you might have at your fingertips, as well as the techniques. And then in those same lupins that I just showed you, if you look a little closer, you'll find these hearts. And this is just achieved by combining a Lensbaby Velvet 85 with a Raynox, which is a clip-on magnifier. It gives you a beautiful and rapid drop-off in focus, and they're very affordable. You can buy them on B&H or Amazon. This is done with the Raynox DCR 250. There's also a DCR 150, and I have Andrea to thank for informing me of this when we first started working together several years ago. And I know some of you may have worked with these in the past, but they're a lot of fun when you have tiny little subjects. And so I have Andrea again, as I said, to thank. Full sun. I don't normally like to shoot in full sun. However, there are some opportunities that don't present well with shade or with diffusion. And these poppies were some of them. I loved the way the center of these poppies just were shown vividly in the sunlight. So we tried it with the group that I had 2 years ago, both with and without diffusers. And the color was pretty much all lost and washed away when we held the diffusers up. So we just shot them very carefully so as not to blow out the highlights in the white petals, which were so pristine. We went back to this location the next day and they were all gone because there was some inclement weather. And that's just the way it is with flowers. You know, you do what you can when the opportunities present themselves. Some more examples in that same bed of the different poppies, also with no diffusers, using Lensbabies. And then the lupin in one of the areas that we go to quite often, everything changes. You know, 1 year is not going to be the same as the next or the next. So you never know what you're going to find. And I really was hoping to maybe do some ICM, that's intentional camera movement with a vertical motion, but it didn't really lend itself to this because the trees were so full with the leaves and the pine needles and everything. So it works very nicely when you have isolated tree trunks. So what I did was a technique that replicated that in part in post, and that was a lot of fun. And speaking of post-processing, I use Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop for everything that I do. There are so many creative opportunities to go into black and white conversions, color grading. This is one of the fern that was done at the state park. And then there are some gardens, as Annie and Mike mentioned, that we go to. And both of the years I went, there were some beautiful irises. And if you shoot irises, you probably know how quickly they fade away. And a spent iris isn't necessarily a beautiful thing. But in this case, there were 2 beautiful blooms and a bud coming out, but there were a lot of distractions in the background from the other iris plants. And so I took this as a challenge. As I mentioned earlier, typically like to be selective in my focus with a nice blurred, clean background. But in this case, this was done at the Candle Factory. I edited this in post-processing by creating textures in the field. And that's another thing that I will share with you, how to create the textures as well as how to apply them in Photoshop. So that is the before and this is the after. And another example, this is before, also this is on Bayfield, and after. And what that looks like perhaps maybe will be like one texture, and then we'll apply that to an image. And I can do some demos while we're there. So to sum up, we're going to be adventurous, daring, doing things that you might not normally do. We're going to be compassionate and work together with each other, inspire each other, support each other. We're going to be inquisitive and ask about what might happen if we try different techniques or looking at things different ways. And we are most of all going to be unique.
Thank you so much, Jacki. That was wonderful. I really appreciate it. I remember those images from when you were on the island. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing them.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Annie.
And next, I'm going to introduce all the way from the Netherlands, Andrea Gulickx is joining us on the webinar. And Andrea, I will pass it over to you.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to share my screen in a minute. Let me see. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. And hopefully it will work. Yeah. Yes, yeah, I think you see my screen now.
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. Hello to everyone. Hello from the Netherlands. Thank you so much for being here and joining us. And I'm really looking forward to come to the States next year. And I have some wonderful experiences with Jacki already and Kathleen. So it's very nice to add one. And well, I think in this presentation, I would like to show you the way I work and how I will take you into my world and show you the light, because I'm not a person who works with post-processing. I don't like to be a lot of behind the computer, so I like to do everything into the field, make it as good as possible into the field. So, for example, this is just in the Keukenhof. And it's a very big area once a year with so many thousands of tulips. And then I don't have a plan when I'm going to photograph. So I'll also, during the workshop, I will invite you to just experience. Sometimes I have to look for a word, sorry.
Explore.
But exploring, experimenting, and just put your lens into the surrounding and see what's happening. And here you see a lot of tulips. And I can make sometimes a little bit sharpness, but I prefer a lot of out of focus, very much blurry. So I do take, this for me is already very sharp. So I do take pictures like it, but then I'm going to look for a way. For me, it's more emotion. If I make this one, I like it, but I don't have the feeling already in my stomach from oh, wow, this is it. So then I will try to look more and more and play with my out of my focus point and just move my body a lot. I don't use ever tripod, only maybe during the wintertime inside. And because this keeps me out of my creativity. So I'm just looking and moving a lot of in front, just through all the areas. And then you see the pictures appearing. So you're not in front, you don't look for a picture, you just play with it and look for where the focus point is going. And then you see how the background is working with your picture. So my subject is the most important, but no, the backgrounds are more important than my subject, but I have to keep in touch with them all the time, both. And so I play around a lot. And most of the time, I just like Mike and all, maybe I think a lot of photographers like to work in the shade, because you don't lose, you don't have highlights in your subject. But there are times I need more light, and then I'm playing with some lights to make a big more contrast into your subject and make it more interesting. I like to create my own moods. So if I put a little bit light, this is a lily of the valley, and you look into the leaves, and I saw some beautiful droplets, but without sunlight, it was not appealing to me. So I put a little bit light behind the leaf, and then for me, it's almost like glow in the dark. And I love to play it with it this way. And there's very much out of focus you see in just a little bit. I do work a lot with the Laowa lenses who have 2 times magnification, or with Lensbabies I like to do a lot, and also with vintage lenses. And all of the lenses add something to a picture already, so I don't have to do a lot of in the post-processing. Also, I like to challenge you to put your white balance in a different color and not do it behind your computer, because you really see a difference when you use, for example, a cooler white balance. You notice when you look very closely that the highlights in the pictures are very much aware. Then you see them more highlighting the pictures. And when it's sometimes a really boring day, boring light, then I like to work with to play with that kind of things. I can do it, of course, behind the computer, but I always say I like to be in love in the field and be happy in the field and not behind my computer. So also I like to play with the surrounding and see what aperture can do to make the blurry parts a little bit more aware. The only thing, I think I always work with a very open aperture, like 2.5, 2.8, 2.5. But the only thing when I raise my aperture is that to make the background more aware, or in the subjects, the surrounding make more. So like here you have the bluebells and then you have the Solomon seals around it. And I love to play with those kind of things to make it more interesting. This was last year in Denver. It was such a tiny, tiny violet, and I almost ignored it. But then a little light catches the orange part, and I just put my lens, the Laowa, I was 2x magnification. And when you are so close, you expect that it's so dark. But I was amazed how much, every time I'm amazed how much light is in your frame when you look so closely, but you have to be aware where the light is coming from and not block the light. So I like to take you by the hand and show all the ways you can use the light. Looking for light in the background to make your subject popping out more. Also see where the out of focus part is getting more distorted and more double parts. I love to work it. It gives a little bit whimsical and ethereal, how do you say it? More fantasy and mood. And this is with the, sorry? This is with the Lensbaby with the soft focus optic. And I think it's very wonderful optic. It makes very beautiful softness around it. And it gives a great feeling with light in your frame. I also work with contrast colors, like more, it can be so simple, but very strong for my opinion. And you see there's not a lot of sharpness. And sometimes I just fall in love in such a simple thing. And if it's make my heart sing, then it's okay. I think this is one of the only picture I ever did post-processing because it's shot in a blue-white balance, but there was a little distortion on the right side, and I just mixed the two pictures. So there's only blue on the right side of the first one, and a little pink dot, and I added another picture behind it. And for me, it's difficult because I never do it. But it was more interesting. But you will hardly see me do it. I'm not a person who does post-processing also on the webinars because on the school, because it's not part of my process. I love dahlias and I love snails, where they're not in my garden. And it's wonderful to play with it and see for the shapes, the colors. I love the warm colors from, and then just, I can do this for hours. And then you think the snails are very slow, but they are very fast if you want to photograph them. But just play with them and see how you make your compositions and when it feels right. And hopefully, and if I know already now, there are a lot of lupines, so we can have lots of fun with that in many ways. Because now I didn't show you very much of my really abstract pictures, but also with the loop point, you can do beautiful things, I think, with abstract. And for this kind, and this is done with a vintage lens. I also like this, the Helios Petzval, and it has a little swirl in the corners. And I think it's also wonderful to have make a beautiful mood, but also in this, the light is always the most important for me. And I like to play with the feeling. And so I really hope to see you in Madeline Island next year. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. We had Jerry King said he loves your photos, your focus and your color. You have such a great eye. So wonderful. Those were glorious. Thank you for sharing those photos with us. And we're going to move on now. Last but definitely not. Oh, sorry that.
Yeah, I tried to stop share, but I don't. Wait a minute. Okay, now I can do.
So like I said, last but not least, we have fabulous Kathleen Clemons, who is joining us today from Maine. And I thought that perhaps today might be her favorite day in the whole world, joining us on the webinar with 3 fabulous master photographers. But there's another reason why today is so special. Would you mind sharing with us?
Well, you're going to make me cry.
Oh.
This morning, I became a grandmother for the 9th time. I have a new baby granddaughter that was born this morning. So it's a really good day. And I'm celebrating pink today. So,
Yay.
thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Let me share my screen. Okay.
Pull yourself together now.
Okay. I'm going to try. No promises on that. I taught at Madeline Island, I think about 7 or 8 years ago by myself. And I am so excited to go back with this team of amazing instructors to share that with them and with all of you. So really looking forward to it. So I'm going to be teaching flower portraits, and portraiture is how I see my flowers. So we'll be talking about all the different things that that you would want to achieve and to work on when you are shooting a portrait, whether it's a portrait of a person or whether it's a portrait of a flower, right? You would want flattering light. You would want to choose a point of view that shows the best of your subject. You'll want to hide any flaws. You're going to want to capture their personality or something quirky about them. Those of you who know I'm addicted to curls and flowers will be definitely looking for those. And that's the sort of thing that I'll be looking for and talking about with flower portraits. We'll be talking about how I see flowers. There's the curls that I mentioned, and I will share with you what I see at every location that we go to. We'll be talking about lighting, the most flattering lighting for our subjects. You've heard a lot about diffusers. I don't go into a garden without having a 12-inch diffuser in my back pocket. But sometimes you don't need it. Sometimes the light makes the flower glow. We're going to definitely be talking about when to diffuse and when not to diffuse. We'll be talking about choosing the most flattering light for your subject. And I use only natural light, which is what we'll be using in the field for sure. We'll be talking about focus, where to place the focus. That's one of the questions that I get most often in everything that I teach online and in person. Focus placement can really make a big difference in your image and where you draw the eye. So we'll be talking about that for sure. Also, let's go one more on that focus placement. We're going to be talking about depth of field. The other question that I get most often is how much needs to be in focus? And my answer to that to you in the field will probably be enough to tell the story that you want to tell, because we're telling stories every time we pick up a camera, right? And let's say that the story and what you're seeing is a curl that I mentioned before. So how much is going to need to be in focus? Well, if you just get a tiny portion of that curl in focus, is that going to tell the story of what you saw and that you wanted to share? Probably not. So we're going to talk about this a lot. Aperture and how close you are to your subject. We'll talk about all the factors that affect depth of field, how close your subject is to the background. You know, it's not only about aperture, but we will definitely be working on that. So how much needs to be in focus? Here, enough to tell the story of what you saw. I saw the curls, right? Getting one curl in focus would not tell this story. I had to go deeper. When do you go shallow? When do you go deep? We'll work on all of that. We're going to talk about backgrounds, right? You want to choose a background that, as you would with any portrait, that doesn't take attention away from your subject, that adds. I always say when looking at the background, if it doesn't add, it needs to go. If there are elements in the background sneaking into your frame, we're going to move those out of the way. We're going to change our point of view. We're going to get in closer, or we may substitute a totally different background. I'll bring printed textures. We'll be using natural backgrounds, which is my favorite. I'd way rather use a natural background than I would an artificial background that I add in post or that I place behind my flower. But it's not always possible. This is with the Lensbaby double glass. I was actually shooting with Jacki and she was using her double glass, and I was so inspired by what she was showing me. I put my double glass on and hadn't used it in quite a while, the double glass too. straight out of camera with a natural background. We can't always do that, right? Sometimes the background is distracting. It's not adding. And then we'll talk about textures, either putting a textured background behind the subject in the field or adding it in post. I have no problem doing that. Sometimes it's necessary for me. We're going to talk about simplicity and how simplifying your composition, simplifying your subject can make your story stronger, right? Most definitely. And shallow depth of field can do that, but there's other ways as well that we're going to talk about. Working your subjects, telling different stories. There's not just one story, right? With a group of lupin. And I think this is one of mine from Madeline Island, as a matter of fact. So I do shoot group portraits from time to time, most often single portraits. But this is also lupin, right? Totally different story. We're going to work it. All right. And I'm going to try and get you to see beyond the obvious, right? Not just what is easy to see. We're going to work on seeing deeper, right? Looking closer, seeing more in our subjects, embracing an age subject. Okay. Going deeper, not just the front of the poppy. What's it look like from the back? Okay. And finally, the best place on the planet to learn how to use a Lensbaby is going to be on this workshop, because you're going to have me and Jacki and Andrea, and we all use them differently. And then if you add what Mike brings to this, it's going to be fabulous. All right. So I'm really hoping that you will join us. And I am going to stop my share.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to a couple of questions. Kathleen, that was wonderful. I appreciate it. And it's beautiful photos. I do have a couple of questions that we have, if we have some time. And those are, Andrea, could you please repeat or list the lenses you use? We'll make sure that you get pinned.
I do, yeah, from the Laowa lenses. I have the 100 millimeter, and that's from my old. This from the mirrorless, the mirror cameras. Now I have a mirrorless, the Z series, and I have the 90 millimeters. But I also have the 25. It's this lens is 2.5 to 5 times magnification. And I only use this on a tripod, and most of the time during winter time, I'm playing with mirrors and water and all those things. So not in the field, it's very difficult for me. And then I have the Lensbabies, and I have to name them now, probably all. I have my most favorite are the Sweet 50, 35, and Edge 35. And soft focus, I really love the optics. I also like the velvet, but now I have the optic. I don't use it so much anymore. And the Helios, I have the Helios Petzval and a normal one. And the Petzval is that they switch the lens around, and then you have the special effect. So many lenses.
Andrea,
Always.
how do you spell Laowa? Is it?
I put it in the chat.
Andrea,
Yes, I put it.
is it in the chat?
I just put it. I put it in for you, Andrea.
Yeah, I already did.
Thank you. L-A-A.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have another question, Mike, for Mike. Are most of your backgrounds put in the field or also in post? I think you answered that, right, Mike?
Well, my style is totally different from the other three, whereas I shoot with everything in focus on my flowers. So front to back, top to bottom, side to side. And one of the problems, I tend to shoot at very high f-stops, 22 to 32, to get maximum depth of field. And what happens when you're shooting a lot of clutter, which we do most of the time, you bring into that background, which ends up kind of messing up my flower. So I use printed backgrounds behind all my subjects when I'm out in the field, and that's what I'll be teaching. So they are used in the field, but then I also occasionally, you saw a couple of the images I had, I do add filters on top of my images in post-processing, which creates another look in the background. But all my flowers are shot by using some kind of a printed background. Unlike the others where they incorporate the background, but they also use shallow depth of field, which softens out the background. Whereas with me shooting everything in focus, I would bring all that clutter into focus, which I don't want. So I use backgrounds that I create, and also you can actually buy backgrounds at hobby stores and that. And that's kind of what I'll teach when I'm on the island. So again, the great thing about this program is you get different styles, and then you can see how everybody does something a little different, and then you can go home and choose which one you like, and then you can go in that direction.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. And thank you to Jacki. I know that a lot of you guys are having questions about which Lensbabies to bring and which is a starter one. Jacki, I really appreciate your assistance in the chat, webinar chat. If you have more questions, like I said, Jacki said the answer always depends on your camera, your taste, and your budget. Is that right, Jacki?
Yes. I always ask people, firstly, are they shooting on a full frame or a crop body? Because the effect you're going to get on a crop is going to be different. You're not going to have the periphery effect that you might have in full that you'll have on a crop. And the other thing is, what do you like? What is your taste? And what is your budget? And I noticed somebody in the questions said they have a Sweet 50, I believe. You need to make sure that you have close-up lenses like macro filters, macro converters, something along those lines. And Lensbaby sells those filters. So that's definitely a prerequisite to getting close and decreasing your minimum focusing distance. Kathleen can probably add to that. We all think, I know Kathleen and Andrea and I all use a lot of Lensbabies, but we don't use them exclusively, as you've seen probably. So I will say I use my 100 to 500 millimeter a lot for flowers. I use it a lot, almost exclusively for my shoot throughs. So if you see me in the field, in a lupin field, a lot of times I'm going to be having my long lens, so it looks like I'm shooting a bird, but I'm not.
Yeah, I'll do the same thing with my 180 millimeter. Yeah.
Okay. Do they have to buy the Lensbaby before this workshop, Kathleen?
No, if they don't have one, you can rent them as well if you're not sure about them. But I don't want anyone to think that they have to have a Lensbaby to do this workshop.
Okay. What were you saying before?
Oh,
Sorry, before
when I'm not using a Lensbaby, I also use a long lens to get better background blur, and that's 180 millimeter, that lens that I use most often for that.
Okay. Thank you. I do have a couple questions about the workshop itself. Sue Pye has said a big thank you to all four of you. She believes that the four of you are incredibly strong, wonderful instructors, all with different strengths and something for everyone. I will elaborate on the schedule of the presenters during the workshop. What will happen is each day we'll break the workshop number of students into small groups, and you will have a full day with each one of these instructors. And on the last day, there will be an opportunity to share your photos and maybe get some one-on-one with that instructor. But you will have a small group a small group with one instructor each day on the island. I hope that helped. Someone also asked Mike if we had a greenhouse available for inclement weather. Have you ever used that greenhouse on Middle Road before, Mike?
Yeah, I shot there last year. We did have a rainy day.
Or Jacki or Kathleen?
And what we did was we went down and picked up some flowers and brought them back. And some people were shooting indoors. I think, Jacki, you were there one time when we had a rainy day, weren't you?
Well, no,
you
but
shot
I
indoors?
don't remember that, but I do remember Annie getting us some amazing flowers in
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did pick up some flowers. I brought some in from the mainland, from a florist. I think Jacki asked for certain ones, and then I just stopped on the way in and picked them up, brought them to the island. And so Jacki was using them shooting them indoors. But we did pick up quite a, I think she spent like $300 on flowers from the little garden shop down the way from, but we were able to do a little bit of shooting. The owner of the garden shop was perfectly fine with us coming in there and shooting right in her space. But if it's really pouring, then it makes it a little difficult. So then we would bring the flowers back and shoot indoors.
Someone is asking also, like, what's the time frame of the day and how does that usually work? Basically, your first each day will start at 9 o'clock and goes until about 4 o'clock. There are some options to go optional after, later in the day, going out to shoot later in the day. Am I right with that, Mike?
Yeah, after dinner. Yeah.
After dinner, there's some optional evening field sessions.
They're kind of free to
They're
do what they want by then. And then
after
Jacki ran some classes, I think, in the evening too, some in the
classroom lectures.
milk house or whatever.
Yes, yes. And then there'll be one evening group trip on a cruise. We'll take a boat trip out to Devil's Caves and have an opportunity to take photos out there as well. And someone's asking about the workshop. The workshop is not quite full. There are a few spots left. So if you're thinking about it, you can go to madelineschool.com and register there. The accommodation options at the location, the Madeline Island campus has accommodations, and we do accommodate people on the campus as well as serve all meals on campus as well. And other options that you could, if you did not want to stay on campus, which we recommend because that's the most fun option, right, Mike and Jacki and Kathleen? There are options to get Airbnbs off, off the campus area, but we do encourage you to stay on campus with the whole group because it's one of those workshops where we're all together, and it really it enhances the experience for everyone.
Annie, can I also add that the food is so
And
good?
someone's asking for the address of it's going to be on Madeline yeah. Oh, you have an unstable internet connection. I'll finish it off. You're right, Jacki. The food, I'll be biased here and say that the food is absolutely incredible. We make sure
And
that you have the
healthy.
healthiest options possible. Yes, healthiest options possible, and that you've got snacks and things to take with you and lots of beverages to bring with you when you're in the field.
And cookies.
And lots of cookies. Andrea, before we let you all go, could you just repeat what setting you used to get the blue color on your images?
It's tungsten or the light bulb. I never use the numbers. I'm not a technical, so the light bulb or tungsten. Glow light, how is it? That's my favorite, but I know not on every camera it looks good on the screen. So then I can imagine it's not working nice. For me, it's very, what I see, it has to be feeling right. So if the blue is very blue, probably it's not nice, and then you do it afterwards in post-processing.
Thank you. And lastly, Mike, we have someone that's asking if you're going to do any workshops in the future around the Michigan area. I thought I'd maybe answer that for you. Madeline Island, right?
Well, that's not in Michigan.
Well, it's close enough.
It's about 50 miles from the border in the
Close
Upper
enough.
Peninsula. No, I'm not doing any in-person workshops in Michigan next year. Madeline Island will be it. I mean, I'll be doing online things, but nothing in person.
So if we want to see you in person, where should we go?
Old Car City.
Madeline Island.
Yeah, well, Madeline Island, they already know that. I'm going to be at Old Car City in about 2 weeks. That's sold out. And then I'll probably do another one in March. But that'll probably be my only in-person other than Madeline Island next year. But I'll be doing things online, of course.
So can
Okay.
can I just put a little word in for how helpful it is to be with people next to them in person? Because sometimes I teach a lot online, but when I'm actually there physically with people, I can see what they're doing, how they're holding the camera, and how they're approaching the subjects. And sometimes it's just a really minor thing, a nuance that makes a big difference. And I know that there are several people who were with me on the shoots that we did on Madeline Island who have won awards with the photos that they did with me. And I wished I had collected them because I wanted to put those in the presentation today, but I couldn't remember which ones and I didn't want to leave anybody out, but I know exactly who they were for some of them and which photos we did. And so I find that really exciting because I remember being there, standing with them and saying, just look at it, go 2 inches over this direction and everything changes. So I really feel that that's the big benefit to being with people physically in person. So I'm happy to have this opportunity to be with so many of you.
And like many other people have said on here, they've got goosebumps to be with you guys next summer. They are so looking forward to it. So like I said, we're going to sign off. I'm going to tell everyone there are few spots left. If you're even on the fence about it, this is one not to miss. 4 master photographers on Madeline Island, June 16th to the 20th. You can find out more information on our website, www.madelineschool.com. We really loved having all of you join us. Thank you so much for everyone taking the time out today to join us on this webinar. It will be recorded and available this week. And thank you. Wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Bye.